and we're going to be talking about, there's a lot of stuff I want to talk about today. But to get started, let me start off with, hello everyone. This is Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier, here with you on No Soundbites Allowed. If it's the first time you've ever seen the live cast that we do, the channel handles politics in the long form. That means we talk about everything that's affecting you, and rather than giving you a soundbite, 30 seconds of information, a headline, which is often and almost always misleading, we actually try and talk with you and go over what's actually happening and how it affects you. That's the purpose of the show. That's the program. That's the whole premise. And we've been doing it for about 12 years now. So if you haven't seen the show before, I hope you're enjoying it. So we've been on, so people are starting to notice that we're here. So I'm going to start off really quick, just a quick message. First of all, we support our veterans, and I want you to know, Post 80 in Binghamton, New York, that is the American Legion Post 80, is going to be having a chicken barbecue on July 18th. Please support our vets. I support the vets. I want them to do as well as possible. And, by the way, just so you know, Post 80, Post 80 also does takeout. You can order takeout from them. Please support our veterans. It's always important. By the way, Lacey Kestiger is here with us. And hey, Lacey, it's always good to see you. Thank you for joining us here. So I did want to get that out and let people know about that. And I see John is with us as well. And he says, hey, Michael, it's always good to see you as well. So I wanted to first start off with that little announcement there. And with that being said, and I do have one other surprise that's going to be coming up a little bit later in the show that I'll be talking about, which is going to be some great news. It'll be very interesting for a lot of people. But we have a lot of news to go over today. Oh my God, there's so much information out there. Juan R., we love you, Mike. Thank you. Thank you. I love you guys too. And as you may notice, I am paying attention to everybody. We get a lot of responses. You can respond by Twitter, by Facebook. We look for all of the comments that you have out there. And there it is, the chat. And so comments will come up and we'll be reading them off. Michael, how can I be as cool as you? John, you're going to take a couple of years. You'll get there. But I want to talk about a couple of big things that are going on. And probably one of the things that are really catching people's attention right now happens to be what's going on over with Goya. Okay. Now, a lot of people don't always know what is Goya. And I don't know if everybody knows who Goya is. And Goya is one of the biggest Spanish food distributors in the country. Okay. They do a fantastic job with what they do there. And I love Goya. Goya Foods it's been something in my family. We've had it for many, many years. Actually, I'm just trying to fix one of my cameras here. Sorry about that. And I love their foods. Malta is one of their great. It's like a soda kind of root beer kind of drink. I love Malta. It's fantastic. And Goya it's a massive brand. It's number 2 in the nation when it comes to Hispanic foods. And they're getting a boycott. A lot of people may not have heard about this. The president of Goya came out and he said, hey, I love what the president is doing. He said the same thing when President Obama was in office. He's always very happy about anything that's going to help the Hispanic community. Obviously, as a businessman, that is his community that he works with. So he's always happy to hear that. And he's happy to mention that when the president is doing anything, whatever president is doing something that's positive for the Hispanic community, like jobs, then he's going to come out and he says it. And that's always been a positive thing. Well, if you may have heard, this time, when Goya came out and said, hey, we support Hispanics, or Goya itself supports the president in helping Hispanics, the very next thing we heard is that across the nation, there were a lot of progressives who said we have to boycott Goya. I want to mention something really important about the boycott of Goya, which is, it's coming from you here, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She's one of those who is against this. This is what they are against. And I want you to understand exactly what we're talking about here. What is it that Goya is against? Let's look at it. Goya is the boycott of Goya, I should say. What are they against in that? Well, the boycott is against Goya giving 200,000 pounds of food. We're talking about Goya giving 18,225 meals in New York City to students and families. We're talking about Goya donating toys to orphans. This is what they're against. This is what they are boycotting. They are boycotting Goya offering $20,000 for students learning how to become a chef. They are against Goya Foods hosting a chef competition. They're against 180,000 pounds of food that was sent to Venezuela. Venezuela, a country that became socialist, and in becoming socialist, went from one of the richest countries in all of South America to the poorest, where their people are running away from the country because they are starving to death and they are being shot by their socialist government. Hello. And Goya is going out there and feeding the people. This is what they are protesting. They are protesting against, I'm just running through. This is their press releases, and this is going back years and years and years. Goya Foods observes Holy Week because Hispanics tend to be very religious and very conservative. What a shocking announcement. This is not new news. What about the 61,265 pounds of food that was donated to New Jersey Devils and Prudential? They were voted America's #2 most loved food brand. 200 metric tons of food given to the people of Venezuela. $20,000 in culinary arts. Okay, I think we're getting the point here. This is what, when people say, I want to boycott Goya Foods, this is what you're boycotting. You're boycotting feeding nations, literally feeding nations. This is what the boycott is because, and the reason why, and this is important, why are they doing the boycott? Because the president said, the president of Goya said the president of the United States is doing okay for Hispanics. What a terrible thing. How dare any Hispanic have an idea of, one, being conservative, two, thanking a president for doing something good for Hispanics, for Hispanic Americans. This is where our nation has come to, that if you say you did a good job for Hispanics, oh my God, you picked the wrong political side, and I want to destroy your company that is giving away 2 metric tons of food who are starving from the very same socialism that the progressives are promoting. It is stupid. Those are the only words I have for that. That is stupid. That is the most stupid boycott I've heard about. Now, I'm not going to tell you can't boycott. It is your American right. It is your privilege. No, it's not a privilege. It's your right to boycott anything you want. If you think Rocky Road is better than butter pecan and you want to start a protest, go for it. If you think cat food is better than dog food, you can start a protest. I don't care. That's your right as an American citizen. But at the same time, we have to think about what are the consequences and what is the cause? What is the reason? Is it worth it to deny 2 metric tons of food to Hispanics in South America who are starving to death in socialism and being shot by their government? Is it good to take away the profit and the ability of that company to feed those people because somebody wants you to vote Democrat in 2020 in the presidential election? Is that worth the trade-off? Do you think that is justified? Let me look at the comments here. So a couple of the comments are, I see John mentions Goya Foods. Yeah, very epic. They're a great company. Ron Stafford mentions that white liberal boycott. Yes, it is a white liberal boycott for the most part, although Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and a couple of others who are Hispanic Democrats are saying that the boycott should happen. AOC stated, all Spanish people are black too. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Sorry, technology. Vic Furman mentions that all Spanish people are black too. Kind of. Kind of. There's been a lot of mixing, especially during the days of slavery. There were a lot of Puerto Rico, the Caribbean was a stopping point along the route from Africa to the United States. A lot of the indigenous people of Puerto Rico, the Taino Indians, were mixed in. I'm black and Hispanic myself, though not from its mom and dad, not the history of Spain, although probably is. So, yeah, that's true. But at the same time, I don't care. Whether you identify as a black Hispanic, a white Hispanic, if you say you're only Hispanic, you're Latino, it doesn't really matter. Goya isn't in the business of saying, let's elect a president. Goya's in the business of selling food to people who need it and giving and donating food to Hispanics that need it and Hispanic nations that need it. And by having a boycott, which you can do if you believe in this, but what you're doing, and I want you to understand the consequence of what is going to happen. If this, which I don't think this boycott's going to be effective at all, and so far in the news media, it isn't. It's actually having the reverse effect that more people are going out and buying Goya, which tells you what the nature of the nation is right now. They're rejecting this boycott because Goya is a great company. But what we're seeing is, okay, they're saying we want to bankrupt this company so they can't feed Hispanics around the world. And if you think that's worth it, go for it. But please understand what you're doing. You're taking food literally out of the mouths of people in Venezuela. You're literally taking food out of the mouths of people across America. You are literally taking scholarships away from Hispanic kids across the nation. And if you think that's worth saying, I don't like President Trump, go for it. I don't think it's a fair trade-off. I think that's stupid. But if you think I'm wrong, guess what? You can see it on the screen right above. You can call in at 607-242-1582, and you can tell me why I'm wrong and why we should boycott Goya and stop them from being able to donate food to hungry people around the world because President Trump, Orange Man bad. I mean, I want to hear that argument. Please call in and tell me how I'm wrong on that. Or you can just text or comment, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube. And as you can see, we read it all off. So, because this is about a conversation. As much as I may lead the conversation, this is a conversation that we're going to have with you. Sorry, and I got a few things coming in off of Facebook. There's a few other things that I wanted to talk about here today. And I said, we have a lot that I want to cover, so I'm trying to get through a lot of information. One of the things I want to get into, also, something that a lot of people may not have heard about or may not be as familiar about. What about Michael Jordan? By the way, you can call in if you see if I'm jumping past something too fast. Please stop me. But I want to talk about Michael Jordan. And you may not have heard about this website, The Undefeated. Not a lot of people know about it, but Michael Jordan does. And a lot of people have been talking about Black Lives Matters, and I'm going to be talking more about it in just a few seconds. But I want people to understand, there's this impression out there, especially by certain people, like a gentleman by the name of Masai Andrews, who also goes by the name of Roderick Douglas, apparently, on Facebook. And Roderick believes in the comment, here it goes, I want people to see this clearly. Roderick believes in the comment that if you disagree with his political statements, he will call you a name I can't say on YouTube or Facebook without this being shut down. But you can see the screenshot right there. That's how he decides that if you don't agree with him and you don't agree with Plot or Black Lives Matters, he wants you to shut up. And if you're black, he adds a wonderful little sound it out. You'll know what that racial slur is. That's kind of upsetting there. But what does Michael Jordan have to say about this? What did Michael Jordan think about this? What is he saying about this? Well, Michael Jordan just came out he had made a comment back in July 25th about this, and I think it's appropriate to read it again. talking about how over decades he has seen law enforcement officers, dedication of law enforcement officers who protected him and his family. And he has great respect for their sacrifice and services. And he recognizes that for many people of color, their experiences with law enforcement may have been different than his, but he wants to speak up that we can come together as Americans and through peaceful dialogue and dedication and education, achieve constructive change. You know, that's an important message. That's a really important message to think about today. Okay, then it's coming from Michael Jordan, a black guy that some people I doubt Messiah Andrews would be bold enough to say the same thing about Michael Jordan as he just did about me. Now, you may say, well, Mike, what does that have to do with anything that's going on anywhere in America? Especially as we talk about Black Lives Matters. Well, let's think about this for a second. What's going on with Black Lives Matters right now? We've got people who are going on out there and they're saying that, Black Lives Matters, and we're going to go into the streets. We're going to block traffic in highways. And we're going to go and tell people they're evil and racist if they don't agree. And they're even going to go so far, as to, where is it? Here it is. They're going to go so far as to kill people, as has happened. And not only am I talking about the child that died in Atlanta, which I spoke about last week, and there's an article I have on that, but also just a couple days ago, a young mom was killed because she had the audacity to say, all lives matter. Can you imagine that? Someone said, all lives matter, and they got killed. Is that insane? Is that where our nation has come to? They've gone beyond not just saying, hey, you're a racial slur, as was said by Masai. Oops, wrong one. Where is it? Where is that image? Nope. There it is. No. Oh, there it is. Sorry. Working with my technology here. Not only going from that racial slur, as we heard from Roderick Douglas which is allegedly Messiah Andrews, one of the political leaders of tomorrow. But no. It goes even further that, as we see reported in the Daily Sun, all lives matters equals death. This young woman was killed. A mother of a 3-year-old was killed because she dared to have a disagreement with someone who said Black Lives Matters. She said all lives matters, and they shot her. And you can check out this, and at the end of the discussion today, you'll see in the comments and the descriptions all of the links that I'm talking about and showing you right now. Now, it takes a British newspaper, The Sun, to say this, because if you look at what happened in WTHR in the United States, they say that a family downtown canal shooting, oh my God, this woman was killed because she had a conflict, but they won't talk about what was the conflict. Where is it here? In this article, walked along with friends, holiday violence. Ramirez said they were walking the canal around 3 a.m. Sunday when they got into a racially charged argument with another group of people, 4 men and a woman. Now, here's the thing and this is why this has not gone national. WTHR is reporting this as a racially charged argument with 4 people. Well, here's some of the things you may want to ask, and ask our news media. Okay, what was the racially charged argument? They know what it is because they're doing the interview. And they're asking some of the people who were involved in the incident what was going on. But for some reason, because you can't say Black Lives Matters is killing people, and they are, then they have to go with it's a racially charged incident. But if you look at some of the other news media that covered this very same event, they mention that this was, and here it is, from Fox 59 out of Indianapolis. The answer is Black Lives Matters, and she said all lives matter. From the news media. See, they're trying to hide the story. And you know what? That isn't helping anyone in America. And one of the first people to catch this was Timcast. And a lot of people like this guy. I think he does a pretty good job. He's on YouTube. And that's how I found it. And then I looked into it because he's saying no one in America was talking about it. And you know what? They really aren't. They're hiding this from you. And again, I have to ask a question. Is it worth hiding for the message of Black Lives Matters? For the message that comes out of, Roderick Douglas, otherwise known as allegedly as Messiah Andrews of Plot here in Binghamton, is it worth it for their message to lie and not tell people that if you say all lives matters in America today, that's worth killing you? That's something that someone feels that they can get away with killing you just because you say something they don't agree with. My God, where has this nation come to? We have people who are trying to take over entire parts of cities. The Seattle Chaz, the Asheville, North Carolina, an attempted Chaz. In Atlanta, Georgia, they're taking over and trying to take over and make an autonomous zone there. Really? Because someone doesn't agree with another person's politics, because they're misrepresenting facts. And in Atlanta, a child was killed. An 8-year-old child was killed. And the news media doesn't want you to have national outrage on that. That's not important to report. This woman is killed. That's not important to report because they have an agenda. Just like they have an agenda when it comes to Goya. You don't need to know what this is going to impact. You don't need to know what's really important. What you need to know is you have to have the right political ideology. You have to know that you have to vote a certain way. And no information that might give you full ideas about what's going on, anything that's going to really tell you in context what's happening in this nation, well, that's not important because you may not vote the right way. This is a massive manipulation and it's destroying this nation. Destroying this nation. By the way, for everybody who's watching the program right now, everyone who's making comments, I would love to hear anyone, if you will, comment. Did you hear about this woman in Indianapolis a week ago who was killed because she said all lives matter? Is this the first time that you're hearing about that? Because it's terrifying. It's absolutely 1,000% terrifying. Where is our nation going? How can we do this? How can this happen in America? I don't understand. I don't understand it. And we're supposed to understand it's okay for people to do things like block off city streets. And I want to come back to this. According to Mike, I don't know Mike.com, but they're talking about 60 people have had cars driven into them. You may recall just recently a white woman was killed by a black driver of an automobile. He hit her by accident, it appears, and she died because she was in the highway. And the 60 people who've had cars driven into them during a Black Lives Matters protest, guess what? You're walking into a highway traffic, but it is the fault of the people who are driving, trying to get to and from work, see their families, live their lives. They're being stopped by these protesters, and if you accidentally hit them, and maybe some people did it on purpose, I don't know, but generally if you walk into the middle of traffic in a highway, guess what? You're in the fault. It's your fault. And the media won't say, oh my God, these people walked into a highway and they're at fault. That's a crazy, stupid thing to do. And that's, by the way, not protesting, because you're denying people the right to be able to go and live their lives and to go to and from work, maybe go to the hospital, take care of their family, whatever they're trying to do. But because you have a feeling, you get to destroy someone else's life. And if they happen to hit you because you just walked out into the middle of a street of ongoing, oncoming traffic, well, that's the driver's fault. Not your fault for recklessly trying to kill yourself. No, it's their fault because they hit you because you recklessly tried to kill yourself. Why is no one talking about this? I don't understand it. Why are we not putting this into perspective? And by the way, if you didn't hear about that, and I'm going to come to the comments in just 1 second, folks. By the way, on April 26th last year, no one really heard about this. If you do, you can sue. By the way, you can sue Black Lives Matters, the organizers, for recklessly driving, walking out and blocking traffic, endangering people's lives. You can sue for that. And I think many people should. This came out on April 26th of 2019, according to ABC News. And I hope that case is going to be resolved soon, because an officer had to come out and try and protect people from getting themselves killed for walking into traffic on a highway. And the result was Black Lives Matter's members threw concrete at him and hurt him severely. I believe his jaw was broken, amongst other things. So there's your answer. It's just crazy. But again, something no one ever hears about in the news media, and we really should. Let me take a look here. So the comments, we got Jason from Bang. No, he has not heard about this. He did not hear about what happened to this woman in in Indianapolis, being killed because she said all lives matters. Now, I happen to look at a lot of news media, both nationally and internationally, so that's why I was able to hear it. But it's just amazing to me. And Mama Papa says, USA is the pillar of the world, so everyone wants to destroy the USA. And the only way to do so, that is from the inside. So please don't let it happen. I don't want America to end. I don't want America to end. I think we have the greatest nation in the world. Even though we have stupid things like this, where Black Lives Matters comes out and they shoot someone for saying all lives matters. There are crazy, insane, violent people in America. There are. And some of them are liberals, some are not. Some of them are members of Antifa. Some of them are members of Black Lives Matters and Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow. Some of them are on the alt-right. Some of them are just crazy people in between. They exist. But one of the things that we need to do is not to glorify one group of those crazy people and denounce all the others. We should denounce them all equally, because that is a matter of equality. If we have equality in America, when someone does something horrendous and evil, like killing a mom because they said something politically you don't like, then we hold them accountable and denounce them for doing that. When we hear people who say things like what was said by Roderick Douglass on social media, you hold them accountable for that racial insensitivity and racial slurs, and we call them out for that. That's how we stop that. Because if we don't, it all breaks down into chaos. It just gets worse. And my God, we need to call these people out for some of this racial insensitivity, these crazy things they're doing. You know what? If I tried to go out right now, and if I tried to take over, I don't know, my local block, and here I am in Southern Tier, New York, upstate New York, and if I tried to take over a block or two here, guess what? And I said, well, it's because I'm black. I'm going to get arrested because I should. That's, kidnapping, terrorism, treason. But yet, if I say, well, I'm with Black Lives Matter, it's okay. No, it's not. We need to call this stuff out. What's the matter with some of our elected political officials, especially the ones on the far left, the elected Democrats out there? We need to call these people out and say, denounce this stuff. Talk to your party and stop this. This is insane. Because when you don't do that, someone dies. And sometimes that someone is an 8-year-old child. Matter of fact, I want to pull up that story. I'm going to pull that up in a second, just so you can see what I'm talking about, because I was talking about it last week, and I want people to see that link, just so you can see what I'm referring to here. And give me a second. Where is it? Yeah, there we go. So I'm not going to play the audio of it. I just want you to see what I was talking about. This was in the Terry Crews. I was talking about Don Lemon and Terry Crews, but the very beginning of that is talking about this child, come on, stupid screen, who is killed at Black Lives Matters because her parents decided to make a turn down the wrong street. And this was from the, what is this? This was from July 8th. That children are being killed. It's sad. And this is what happens when we don't stop the radicals out there. You may believe in Black Lives Matter. You may believe in the ideology of the socialist progressives, and that's fine if you do. It's America. You can believe that if you want to. But that line stops when we do violence. When we see violence going on in our nation, when children are being killed, I draw the line at that. I draw the line when the consequences of what's going on is going to deny millions of people, well, potentially millions of people throughout our nation and around the world for that matter, the ability to eat food, like with Goya. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I just don't understand. Maybe it's a good thing. We need to go out. Maybe we should be protesting everybody who's giving food to anyone in the world. Maybe we should allow radicals to go around and kill people because they don't agree with the ideas that they're hearing, because someone dared to say, I have a different opinion. You know, I don't know. But I know it's not just happening to me, because it's happening to a lot of people. As you can see, this is a posting that came out yesterday from June 30th. It was a repost of a June 30th Twitter where David Curtin, who I don't know, I do not know the man, but he's talking about just because he happens to be a black conservative, apparently, a black Republican, or more importantly, someone who doesn't agree with Black Lives Matters, he was labeled words I can't repeat without, Facebook and YouTube instantly shutting this down. And I know exactly how he feels because they're doing the same thing to me. And you know what? That's sad. That is sad. That we can't speak our mind and we are being told, especially if you happen to be black or Hispanic, you can't think for yourself. You can't have an opinion for yourself. And if you do, you are a racist and they're going to throw racist slurs at you. The very same racist slurs that they accuse someone of being a white supremacist if they use these words. And yet these very same words are used by these people against their own. That's sad. Mama Papa mentions what we need is a roundtable between leaders to stop this nonsense movement. Well, that would be interesting, and yeah, maybe that could work if we actually knew who the leaders were. You're talking about Black Lives Matters, progressive leaders of tomorrow, the far left. Who leads them? They are secret groups, secret organizations with a secret membership, with a secret agenda. We don't know what they stand for. All we do know is when they come out and they make racial attacks. And we also know that very often they will come out and they will use different names. They will use the anonymity given to them because of the internet, and they will use different names like a Roderick Douglass or a Rick Glass to go out there and to make attacks that they couldn't otherwise do. They'll use terms and insult people and attack people and make people afraid to respond because, hey, they can get away with that. So you don't get a round table. There is no speaking to them because there is no them. They hide themselves. This is how they intimidate people. And it's really, really sad. And I'm really, really angry about this. You know, I was doing a lot of work, and I was actually going to go in an entirely different direction with this entire show today. And then I saw that, whoops, hang on. Hello, and thank you for calling into the show. This is Michael. How can I help you?
Hey, it's Jason.
Jason from Bing. He's one of our frequent callers on the program. And by the way, folks, you too can call in at any time and be able to speak on the show. Jason, and again, just for clarification, you are not Jason Garnar, the county executive of Binghamton. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay. What's up, Jason?
Yeah, just you kind of segued into a couple things that I wanted to kind of tie into. It kind of relates back to some of the situation that's happening with over in Endicott, and they apologizing for the conversation about
Well, before you go further, let me let people know what's going on with that because there was one of the things on the list. So for people who don't know, a couple of days ago, a couple of members, a Republican and a Democrat, had saw a post on social media that said "White Lives Matter," and they said, "I dare you to repost this," and they liked it. They actually liked the video. So elected politicians, both parties, liked a social media meme. Because of that, the Democratic Party of Broome County has asked for the resignation of one of their own elected officials and also the Republican mayor, and has threatened them they need to resign and kicking the Democrat out of the Democratic Party because they liked something on Facebook. Not because of any policy they did, not because of anything they have done for their constituents, not because their constituents are upset with them. No, because they liked a meme on Facebook that disagrees with the message coming out of Democratic Party, which is you must accept the socialist Marxist ideology of Black Lives Matters. So yes, go right ahead.
Yeah. So let me ask you your opinion then of their response, and especially I think I put a little more stress on the Republican mayor there, considering that she actually now is kneeing to these progressive individuals. So what was your thoughts on her, and also too is what they're actually going through to I would call it reprogrammed.
Well, here's the thing, and I should also mention that the mayor of Endicott, which is Linda Jackson, her deputy mayor, Cheryl Chapman, who is the Democrat, they have both apologized publicly for this statement for this action they took, because they say that they did not know that there would be such a racial meaning behind it. They weren't thinking of it in that manner. They were thinking of it more as a all lives matter, not a racist white supremacist ideology, which quite honestly, unless you're thinking in terms of race, unless you're thinking about this as a racist, saying that white lives matter must equal racism, that is an inherently racist statement. Quite honestly, because if you're saying that, then Black Lives Matters is a black supremacist statement. There's no difference. If you change the words, if I said that Asian lives matter, does that make it somehow about Asian supremacy? That's the message that they're putting out there. And one of the big tests about whether or not something is racist is to say, okay, let's change the term and see if it still fits. If I change that key word white to black or Asian or Jewish or gay, and does it mean the same thing? Does the context suddenly change? If it means the same thing all the way through, it's not a racist statement. If it does change, then it is a racist statement. So, or rather, the other way around. If it stays, it's racist. If it changes, then it's not. So when I say gay lives matter, I don't think that anyone's thinking that that means that gays are supremacists. But somehow, if you say whites are, then it is supremacy. That's inherently on the subjectiveness of the person. It's your mindset that changes the meaning of the words. And that's something we should keep in mind. So they apologize for this. I don't agree with that. I don't think that was the right move, because I believe every time we have seen people apologize to Black Lives Matters, they go ape crap, and they go out there and they ask for more, and they try and get more and more and more. So I don't think that resolves it. I don't think that stops them. I think that encourages them to do more, to attack more, and to ask for more, and to try and get more. And that doesn't help anyone, because it's not a benefit to constituents. If you have elected officials that are doing their jobs properly, then why should you get rid of them because of a misunderstanding? Especially when that misunderstanding is subjective to the people like Bridget Kane, chairman of the Broome County Democratic Committee. It's her impression that it's racist. It's her racist viewpoint on it that makes the statement racist. And therefore, she's going to keep going with it. And that may hurt the people of Endicott because of her miscommunication. That's a problem. So I'm very upset about that. I'm very upset that they have to go through this. And I know that they're going through a racial sensitivity training. And I know the individual that I've actually interviewed, the gentleman, Mr. Lawrence Parham, who formerly used to be a member of Black Lives Matters back 4 years ago before he left that group. And I've done an interview with him on that. And I think it's just silly that they have to go through that. I just do. But I see that John Solak mentions that no iron ladies need apply. And Tony Garrett mentions nobody really gives an actual F about life, hence children starving to death in the 21st century. To an extent, Tony, you're right. And I understand, John. Yeah, it's sad that they're treating women like this. Because if it was a Republican doing this to them, if the Republican Party said, we're going to kick you out because you dared say something we don't agree with, there would be a national outrage, and this would be a national story, and people would be losing their minds. But Jason, does that kind of answer what you're asking about? It was a little long.
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, my perspective on this, is that they're really. I mean, I'm not sure. See, I hadn't actually, seen the interview that you had with Lawrence Parham on it. Mm-hmm. So I don't really have a perspective exactly, how that interview went or what his perspectives were on things. I've only pretty much read a little bit about the background and some of the theories that I would see him pretty much applying to, this sort of, what I call re-education of, the individuals here. And what I mean is that the one of the things is that they go the critical race theory. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that or what your perspective on that whole ideology.
Critical race theory?
Yeah, critical race theory.
My thoughts about
pretty much.
Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much just a more of a broadened perspective on intersectionality. And so basically they're going to be pretty much, into the understanding of intersectionality and pretty much how to conform to it. That's my perspective anyway, from what I've read on it.
Well,
my other
go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
My other question is though too is that I know you were saying, Plot and these other progressive groups. My question is though is that I almost think that, well, considering that I have seen the relationship between the Benton University students and they're pretty much they pretty much come from the college and then they go straight into these groups. The only thing I could conclude though is that they have to get their education from somewhere. And the two professors and individuals that were listed, to do these workshops are the ones who would be conveying this ideology to the students that become part of these progressive groups. So I just see this circle here. It's kind of all connecting in my mind. I'm not sure if you see that to be the same thing.
Well, the first thing I want to do, let me let you see, and you can see this here. You can go to the Voss Political Commentary site, and you'll see under the Black Lives Matters enters Binghamton, New York with questionable causes, May 22nd of 2016, published on May 19th, is when I had my interview with Larry Parham. And by the way, I mislabeled his name as Larry Parr in the video, so I do apologize to that for Larry, who's not a bad guy when I speak with him, but I disagree with him politically. But we get to hear exactly where they're going. So you can look that up and people will be able to see that. That's at the MVOS Political Commentary site. Again, link will be inside. But whenever we have a philosophy that is out there saying that one group is superior to another group, like we hear in identity gender politics, that's racism. That's all kinds of isms, whether it's sexism, racism, and we need to acknowledge that and realize that that's not going to help anyone. And there's the problem with this whole idea about, well, you have to apologize for being white. You have to apologize for being born. When we accept people doing that, when we ask people to do that and we accept that people are doing that, we're not helping our country. We're hurting us. Because that is basically taking the step back to the same kind of racial inequality we had post-Civil War. These are Jim Crow laws, essentially. And it's a problem. And we need to call it out for what it is. We need to say, you can't do that. We learned that lesson, and we are better than that lesson. And yeah, it's taken us a couple hundred years, but we're better than that. And what we're seeing is a regression. Remember there's the safe rooms that were in colleges? And those safe rooms, that's segregation. Those were black-only rooms. If you're white, you can't go into this safe room. And the safe room's there to protect you from people's First Amendment right to say something and disagree with you. I mean, that's what we're really seeing here when it comes down to what is going on with Bridget. Well, excuse me, Bridget Kane. When we see her comment, what she's literally saying is, if you happen to be a Democrat, and if you say something they don't agree with, they will kick you out of the party, they will deny you votes, they will deny you re-election funding, that you can't speak and have your own mind and your own ideas, and if you do, they're going to make sure you get punished for it. That is a terrifying thought. And this may be why some politicians like Bob Wessler or legislator Bob Wessler or Representative Anthony Brindisi, why they won't talk about defunding police, why they won't talk about what's going on with Black Lives Matters and how they're threatening people in our communities across the nation. And they won't stand up to it. Why the Democratic Party is backing up people like Black Lives Matters that feels like it has every right to go out there and to use racial slurs to try to affect elections. I'm telling you, this is terrifying. This is a terrifying point in America. And the implication for the public is terrifying. I mean, I can tell you, I stand up for both Mayor Linda Jackson and Deputy Mayor Cheryl Chapman for their ability to have the First Amendment right to say what they think, to do things that they want to do, that have no connection to any of the policy that they're doing to take care of their constituents. I denounce Bridget Kane coming out here and saying, I'm going to use the full power of my political office to affect the way people think. That's terrible. And I know John Selleck has mentioned that they have betrayed the oath of office. I don't know that they did that, John. As I understand, they did it because they want this to end. They want to be able to go back to taking care of their constituents. They think this is the easiest way and best way to take care of everyone. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think John's right on one point, because I actually just started reading a book on that critical race theory after reading this, hearing about this, because I really actually wanted to know what they're going to be indoctrinated into.
Hmm.
And when I realized what it was about, because the thing is that you got to look at, they with intersectionality, when they start defining it in this critical race theory, you kind of ask the question, you're like, okay, to what end? Okay, you got these people lined up as the oppressors and the oppressed, but then what's your solution to the problem? The ultimate solution to the problem, or the problem itself as defined here, it's capitalism. They say that no matter what you do, there's going to be winners and losers, and if capitalism is there, then you can't end racism, because the capitalism itself is systemically racist. So the problem is, though, is that you have Linda
Hmm.
Jackson there, a Republican. You would hope that possibly she'd have some sort of a conservative ideology that's she would want to at least legislate or to execute, her, she's an executive, so to go by. And yet now she's actually having a Marxist ideology, an anti-capitalist agenda being forced upon her and being re-educated. And you know what she's doing, though? She literally is kneeing to it and is accepting that, and now is, forced to preach it to others, I suppose, at this point,
I
or
don't.
be canceled.
No, see, I want to stop there, Jason,
Sure.
because I think that's a misrepresentation, at least at this moment. I don't. I don't see that they are advocating things that they don't believe, and I don't think they have done that. I don't think that that will be the result. But I do think they're trying to say, okay, we've got the political pressure on us. We're going to go out there and take the sensitivity course, understand that there's certain words that people's feelings are hurt by, and let me try and be more sensitive about that. And if that is the case, and I believe truly that is the case, then okay, whether I agree with it or not 100%, I understand it, especially if the answer is, and this lets us continue to do our job properly for our constituents, which has nothing to do with whether or not someone likes the words we use to do the job. Because that's what it's all about. It's really about words and feelings. How do you feel about the word I used, not the result? That's why we see, as I have on the screen again, Goya. Goya is a capitalist company. They feed metric tons of food to people around the world. I use Venezuela, but you can go through their site and you'll see metric tons of food that they're using because they're capitalists to feed people. And we're seeing people saying, well, you have to boycott them because they didn't feel good about the fact that he said, thank you for helping Hispanics to a president. I think most people recognize that is stupid.
Which do they hate more? Do they hate the president more, or do they hate capitalism more? Or they just actually figure that a lot of people dislike, Trump, maybe because they feel he's polarizing, and then now they're going to use this to try to dismantle capitalism or take a double hit on it. I don't know.
I think they hate. I think they hate President Trump because the political pressure that they attempt to put on him fails. It doesn't work. Unlike most presidents, he has not capitulated every time they put pressure on. When they say, oh, you're a racist, instead of saying, oh my God, I'm so sorry that I was born white, he instead has said, okay, deal with it. And when you say that, and they, oh my God, how could you, you've got to say something. Oh my God, you've got to fail. It's one of the reasons why I have, this gentleman, Roderick Douglas, who goes out there and calls me a racial slur. And the idea, I guess, is he wants me to shut up. And that's, well, you're a racist, ooh, shut up. And my answer is no. It's just that simple. Just because you don't agree with me doesn't mean I have to shut up. It doesn't mean I have to apologize for being born. And I think they're upset that when they deal with President Trump, his answer is no, I'm not going to shut up. And just because you don't agree with me doesn't mean I have to be silenced, nor do I have to apologize. And I think we really should look at this nation and say, if you're not, just because someone doesn't agree with you doesn't mean you have to apologize for being born. It's that simple to me. And we really, really need to look at it that simply. Hang on one second, Jason. John Solek mentions that Jackson and Chapman have been successfully blackmailed through social media. A lot of elected officials have been pushed to decisions that I don't think they should naturally have done. And this is just one example of it. It's the same thing as when we're seeing the example, as I was talking about before, because these things are all connected. They're all very, very connected. And we're seeing that, in the same way that in this one group we're seeing people being pushed to a decision, we also see the media coming out there and they're not reporting things properly. When you can shoot people for saying all lives matters, or you can go to Goya and say, I'm going to boycott you because you said thank you for giving us help. The problem isn't the politicians. Well, it's the politicians and the media and the fact that we're allowing this to happen. We need to speak up on that. But go on, Jason. I'm still with you.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of tie this into the Change Coalition. Did you hear anything more on this yourself?
No. For people who don't know, we've talked about this a couple times on the show for 2 or 3 weeks now. There's an organization called the Change Coalition. That is a group of unknown people who have come together to try and promote a Black Lives meaning, or I don't even know how to word it, a Afrocentric political viewpoint in the city of Binghamton. That's their agenda, apparently. And they're currently in discussions with the local government about that, and in particular about defunding police, which I disagree with completely. I disagree with defunding the police 100%. So go on. Jason?
He broke up here.
Okay. I said, so I disagree with defunding the police, which is what that organization is about, and I haven't heard more about it. But what are you thinking about that?
Well, so you said that they actually are for defunding the police?
I understand that at least one of the groups that make up the Change Coalition are in favor of that, as I understand it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Am I coming through clear? I just want to make sure.
You're fine.
Okay. Yeah, so it was on a couple of the concepts that we talked about before. It was about the implicit bias and the cultural competency training that the Bennington Police Department are going to have to go through. And I did, and this ties into, again, the critical race theory. And again, these sort of, trainings, and I looked them up, and really they're completely virtue signaling. There's no valid data that actually shows of any sort of change within a department that would actually, give any sort of value to this money being spent for this sort of training or theories being implemented on the police department. And again, like I said, my belief is that, again, this is based upon, another concept that comes through a, Marxist anti-capitalist, theory as well too. So I don't even know whether or not the mayor himself actually understands these theories or just kind of agreed to it because the coalition said so, and just saying, well, implicit bias, we don't want that, and cultural competency, we could always have more, but yet they actually think what these are, and what the outcome you want to have, and also what sort of data is there out there to prove that this sort of thing's even worth the money. And from what I've seen, it's not.
Well, you got to understand, from a political standpoint, I understand why some of these politicians are making efforts to hear these voices. And to an extent, they should, because these are constituents, ideally. Not all of them are. Black Lives Matters isn't really a local organization. This is a national movement of a secret organization. But ideally, they're made up of local people. And they're having local comments and interaction with their local government. And that's a good thing. And not everyone agrees with everything someone's going to say locally. I'm not against that. I'm not upset about him having the conversation with them. I am upset that when unknown groups, that this Change Coalition was made out about a month ago, they suddenly came into existence. I'm upset about who are these people and how are they influencing or trying to influence our government. Why is it that we're seeing political leaders like Bridget Kane of the Democratic Party in Broome County is out there putting political pressure on people to get a result that has nothing to do with effectiveness, but rather about emotion. Why are they boycotting Goya when the company is only trying to help people, and what they've done, saying thank you for a help from a president, is innocuous. It's nothing. These are the problem isn't, I mean, I don't know if it's coming across properly when I say this. The problem isn't inherently in hearing people. It's not inherently in saying, that they're saying thank you, but that someone is saying you're evil because you don't agree with me. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what these things are all coming down to. You're evil because you don't agree with me. I believe in freedom of speech. You can say you don't agree, but that doesn't make me evil or you evil just because you don't agree with me. But yet we're hearing from these politicians, we're hearing from these groups, whether it's Black Lives Matter, progressive leaders of tomorrow, or the Broome County Democratic Party, we're hearing, if you don't agree with us, you must be an evil, racist, sexist, blah, 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 ism kind of a person. And that's just wrong. That's implicitly wrong. That's making people apologize for being born, for having an independent thought. And that's just crazy.
Well, I think it's a standard that they're actually using to set what, a person's evil is. I mean, I'm almost thinking, because if Chapman and Jackson are both being judged by the intersectionality hierarchy and basically aren't checking their white privilege, then just for that reason, given this, critical race theory type of ideology that they have to be taught on, so they will actually know in the future not to cross the line, just by them, saying whites are equal to every other race inherently makes them racist and bigots. So now they got to be re-educated, and that's the whole point of this program. And I'm afraid that that's the same sort of implementation of ideology and policy that they want to put on our police department. I mean, if they do that to our police department, the outcome of this training is going to get police to not enforce the law, because that's really the end is. Because the bottom line is that you see a criminal doing a criminal act, then you arrest them, irregardless of the color of their skin. That's the ruling. But the problem is, though, is that when they do this implicit bias training, is that they have to all of a sudden ask the question: am I unconsciously making this decision because of the color of that person's skin, or maybe because of their economic status, or I don't know, maybe I could smell their perfume from the distance and it just kind of rubs me the wrong way, and that's the reason I'm going to pull them over and give a ticket. I mean, that's the sort of mentality that these programs have, and I think that they need to be pushed back on, and people need to be educated on exactly what this actually is and what this actually means for our community.
I do agree with that, and that's one of the reasons why I'm speaking out, and that's why I encourage people to comment and call in and talk about this. And Tony Garrett mentions media, both mainstream and alternate, does not help bridge social divides. In fact, they artificially create them. And I don't think it's artificial. I think it's that one of the outcomes of social media is a division of people. When we say you can't say that you can't do that, when we forget that the First Amendment allows us all to have an opinion, to disagree with it. I mean, back in the 70s, 50s, even in the 90s, you could have different ideas and not want to demonize someone for having that different idea. But today, we're in a whole new place. And I think that's the problem. Social media, in combination with the fact that we've been told constantly, we've seen students trained in schools to say, if someone has an idea that is different than yours, they are inherently evil, and that you don't have a choice. There's where the inherent problem is. And the more that we have political leaders who bend into that, the worse off we are. The more that we allow these groups to go, the more we see things like the Seattle Chaz, the more we see things like Atlanta, where the 8-year-old is killed, where we see things like Indianapolis, where a mother is killed because she says all lives matter. That's the problem. That's the outcome every single time when we forget we have a First Amendment right to speak, and if you don't like it, don't participate in the conversation, not let me forcibly take someone out of the conversation. And by the way, this is the reason, before I go further, I want to free up the line a little bit in case anyone else wants to call back in. So Jason, I'm going to let you go right now, but please keep typing and maybe we'll speak a little bit more a little bit later, okay?
Sounds good.
All right, thank you. By the way, again, Jason, thank you always for calling in. I thank you for bringing up these issues.
Yep, no problem.
All right.
Have a good one.
All right. So, folks, please remember the phone number for the show is 607-242-1582. You can also leave a comment on Facebook at at No Soundbites Allowed. Vasquez, No Political, blah. I have too many websites. So it's No Soundbites Allowed on YouTube. It's Voss Political Commentary on Facebook. And you can always call in and either leave a text or call into the show at 607-242-1582. I have way too many things and I didn't even get to my Twitter. But anyway. So this is one of the problems that we have is that people are forgetting you can't force someone into your belief. And that is exactly what we see. And these things are all tied together. And we see it most directly with the plot, the Black Lives Matters, how they're forcing people into this ideology. And if you don't, you're going to be ostracized, you're going to be punished, you're going to be attacked. And I bring up this because I want you to see something. The Libertarian Party has a candidate for president, Jo Jorgensen. It's a woman, and she's a pretty decent candidate for a libertarian in general. I mean, she's qualified enough. And she decided, I guess it was for the idea of trying to get more votes or to get more attention. I'm not really sure. But she came out with a statement, and it's literally driving the libertarians, a group that is notorious for their ideology that you can say and do pretty much anything as long as it doesn't harm another person, that you cannot force a person to do something. People may recall I've talked with Larry Sharp. I've done interviews with him, actually hours-long interviews with him, and I've shown up on his show talking about libertarians and Republicans, things we're similar and different on. And Jo Jorgensen is their presidential candidate, and she came out just on yesterday, 2 days ago, on the 10th, saying that it's not enough to be passively not racist. We must actively anti-racist. We must be actively anti-racist. Black Lives Matter, vote gold. And this has put out a firestorm out there in the libertarian circles. And I kind of agree with them because she's saying you must be anti-racist. You must, which infers that if you aren't being actively anti-racist, you are a racist. That's the methodology that we see with Black Lives Matter with Progressive Leaders for Tomorrow. That's the methodology that leads to the Seattle Chaz, with the autonomous zones being attempted in D.C., in Asheville, North Carolina, in Atlanta, Georgia. It's that mentality that if you're not doing what we say, you are the problem. That's the failure to understand the First Amendment. And that's a problem. I mean, 5 hours later, she came out and made her own comment about this, trying to clarify, saying Black Lives Matters means standing in solidarity with a mourning black community as we fight together to end qualified immunity, police brutality, sentencing disparities, and the war on drugs, not support any, quote, organization by that name. And I'm sorry, that's not what you said in the first statement. The first statement you said is, we must be actively anti-racist. And the more we say things like that, the more we're saying, you can't have a voice, you can't have your own opinion, the First Amendment doesn't apply. And that's terrifying to me, especially when it's coming out of a libertarian. When our society has gotten to the point that the libertarians who believe in do what you want as long as you don't force it on others, and we have their presidential candidate saying, hey, you can't, implicitly a racist if you don't actively be a non-racist. That's a problem. And I'm sure there are libertarians who are going to tell me, Mike, you just don't understand. I'm pretty sure I understand the statement she made. I understand she tried to clean it up later, but that's the statement she made. That's the statement we're hearing from a lot of politicians across this nation into every aspect of our lives. That's the same mentality that's leading us to go to Goya being getting a protest as they try and give away 2 metric tons of food to starving people because they decided they have their own opinion. Their management, the president of the company, not even the company, the president of the company said, thank you for helping Hispanics to a president. And because someone's feelings were hurt and they said, well, I don't agree with that, Goya has to be punished. That to me is the same thing as Joe Jorgensen saying, if you're not being actively anti-racist, you must be passively racist. That's a problem. That's a problem of the way that's taking someone's individual subjectivity and suddenly making it a objective act of evil. I got a problem with that. I don't know. But if there is a Democrat, if there is a progressive that is listening to this and you disagree with me, please call into 607-242-1582. Please tell me how I am misunderstanding this. I really want to hear that. And I ask every show, if there are Democrats out there, if there's a member of Black Lives Matters or Plot, if Messiah Andrews, who's one of the leaders of the organization, would like to call in and say, Mike, you just don't understand, and let me explain why I use racial slurs to describe you, why, other Democrats and progressives in elected office in my local community here in Southern Tier, like legislator Bob Wessler or Councilwoman Aviva Friedman, if they would like to tell me how I'm misunderstanding this and how I'm suddenly evil because I don't want to apologize or have anyone apologize for their race, please tell me. I would love to hear that conversation. I would love to have that conversation. It's just aggravating, folks. But we got to have this conversation. We've got to discuss this. We have got to stop our government from just appeasement. Every single time that we allow Black Lives Matter or any organization, I don't care, they're specifically the case, but when we let people just walk into the middle of a highway and disrupt people's lives, and if they get hit, we're going to blame the drivers for someone being recklessly endangering their own life and others, then we have a problem in our society. When we're saying we have to boycott an organization that feeds people because they're a capitalist company, and we're going to punish them for that, there's a problem. When we're saying when we're hiding the fact that someone got killed because they had an innocuous public political statement, and they're getting killed for it, and we're not having an outrage in the nation for that, there's a problem. When we have a young child, an 8-year-old, being killed because they went to the wrong place, their family went to the wrong place, and that killed that child, that caused that child to be killed because of Black Lives Matters, you know what? Something's wrong with our society. And maybe I'm the only one who thinks that, but I don't think I am. And you can see the whole comment, on that was last week I was speaking about that. But let me keep moving forward here a little bit. Because all of this is coming together in something that I saw, and I was speaking about this on the 9th. And Tony Garrett mentions, we tried appeasement in 1939, and that didn't turn out too well. No, it didn't. You're right, Tony, because appeasement never works. And that's why these groups never stop. No matter what you give, they're never going to stop, because it's not about, we're willing to compromise. They want you to submit. I mean, ask some of these progressives, ask these socialists, if you apologize for being white, is that good enough? And they're going to tell you, no, it's not. They'll tell you directly, it's not enough that you apologize. Now you have to pay me for it. You have to make some kind of reparation. It's not enough to say, I'm sorry. It's not enough to say, hey, let me take a sensitivity course. No. There's always something else you have to do that puts you more into submission to their will and denies you your will. And I tell you, as someone who is a near absolutist on the First Amendment, I don't agree with that. I think it's a core constitutional, conservative, Republican value, but I think it's also an American value that you get to be the person you want to be, not what this other organization tells you can be. And I don't care if that organization happens to be Democratic Party, Libertarian Party, Republican Party, Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, or any other group. I don't think that's unfair to say. But at the same time, I found it really interesting. On the 10th of July, 2 days ago, I found out that, and I put out this article, proof, YouTube is terrified of a Trump win. And the reason why I mentioned that is I found out that there is an algorithm on YouTube, in Google, that is trying to subliminally change your vote. They are trying to control your vote. It's the same thing that we're seeing in everything we've been talking about today. Google doesn't like the president. Doesn't matter if he's Orange Man bad or anyone else. They don't like the president. And so they are going to use their power to force you to change your vote. And they're doing it really simple and quiet because they're going to put in changes in your search engines. Now, that's not only shadow banning, like they do to me and many other conservatives, where they make it very almost impossible for people to find you. And I've had problems with YouTube on that too. If you've ever seen, gee, Mike, why are you doing a live cast and I can't find it on Facebook or on YouTube? That's their algorithm shadow banning me, denying you the opportunity to hear me, whether you agree or not. You can tell me you hate what I say. That's perfectly fine. They won't even give you that option. They're terrified of you hearing anything I've said today. Whether you agree with it or not, they won't even take the risk. But they've gone one step further now in the 2020 election. And what they're doing right now is, as I found out, they are inserting their preferred viewpoint. They are inserting little tidbits. This is what's recommended. You should click on, and in this case, it's a group that's called, Republicans Against Trump or something like that. An organization I've never heard of before, that I've never spoken to. I've never read their stuff, and has nothing to do with any search I've ever made. And yet they're injecting it into my search engine results and saying, hey, this is what you need to look up. It's recommended. You should know about this. Wait a minute, but that's not what I was looking for. That's not what I look at YouTube for. That's not what I was trying to find out about. But they're insisting, they're forcing it on me that here's something you've got to see this. This is their new algorithm. And if you think, Mike, you're just wrong on that. You just misunderstood. Well, the very next day, yesterday, July 11th, out came the story from Timcast, Breitbart, and several other news organizations saying, hey, guess what? Google is changing its algorithm to affect your vote, to change your mind, to force their will on you, to deny you your First Amendment right, to punish you, essentially, for not thinking the way they want you to think. That's terrifying to me. Now, sometimes on the show, we're lucky enough, we're good enough to find out about an issue ahead of time and let people know about it. This is one of them. And now I'm not going to get a whole lot of press. I'm not Timcast. I'm not a national figure. I'm a small fish in political commentary. I admit that fully. But yeah, we got it right. And we got it early. And it's happening to you. It's happening to you, and people are coming after you right now, actively in this nation. Is it happening? Yeah. In your algorithms, as you can see with YouTube. It's coming after you when you try and buy food. If you buy it from suddenly the wrong company. It's happening to you if you have the wrong political ideas. It's happening to you when in diversity training, and here's something I didn't get to mention, if you're elected in office and you happen to be white and you work for the government, according to Seattle, they want you to have an interpreting internalized racial superiority and whiteness program. You have to learn how to say you can apologize for being white. This is what they want. And this is reported, it was an opinion piece, but it was reported in the New York Post, July 9th. And the thing that's the opinion of it is what, and I want to be clear, the opinion isn't the program that exists. Seattle is making their elected officials, anyone who's working for the government of Seattle, is being forced to take the course. That's not an opinion. The opinion is what they think of it. And you may think of a lot of things about it, but I think it's absolutely wrong that we have a government organization telling people what they must think. Just kind of like with Broome County. Just like with Broome County, with the Democratic Party, where they're saying you must think this way. You know what that reminds me of? Joe Biden. You ain't black if you're not voting Democrat. How can people not be terrified of these things right now? I don't know. But you know what? Let me ask the audience here, and I want to hear someone, if you think I'm wrong, if I'm on the wrong direction here, if these things aren't terrifying you, let me know. Someone send me a text, send me a message, call in, tell me, Mike, you're just wrong. These aren't terrible things. These aren't things that endanger the future of America. These aren't things that we should be worried about. Maybe I'm missing the boat here. Maybe. I don't think I am. I don't think that these are things that I'm missing. By the way, I want to mention to everybody, besides that you should subscribe, because YouTube is not going to be promoting this. They're not going to let people know about it. Facebook is not going to be sharing this with people, if you search for it, because they don't want you to hear any of this. They don't want you to even have this conversation in your mind. How dare you think about this? They don't want you to think. But someone who does want you to think, and I want to give them a little plug here, and I meant to do it a little bit earlier, is Joe Silverstein. And Joe Silverstein has a podcast. And I want you to know, next week, Friday, July 17th, I will be on the Joe Silverstein podcast. And I will be a guest speaker there, talking about, a lot of things. But I just want you to know a little bit about him. I'm going to give him a quick little plug here so he can hear about him.
What's up, everyone? Joe Silverstein here. Today, I want to tell you about the Joe Silverstein podcast launching summer 2020. We'll be discussing the Marxist revolution occurring in the streets, constitutional politics, the 2020 election, and so much more. Expect prominent guests and great interviews. Stay tuned.
Yeah, and I happen to be one of the interviews. I don't know about prominent guests, but I am one of the guests, and I will be on that program on Friday. For a lot of people who don't know who that is, he is a college student. I believe it's Cornell, or, oh God, I forgot the college. I apologize, Joe. But Joe is a college student. He has a program, a podcast, and I'm happy to be, he asked me to be on, and I'm going to be happy to be on there talking about a lot of things. So please keep an eye out. I'll have more of a promotion and advertisement about it, letting you know what time I'll be on and when you can hear it. I received a comment from Tina. Yes, they are terrifying. And what is even more terrifying is that so many are okay with it and want to fundamentally change America. Well, that's what they promised us. Tina, think about it. Folks, you've been promised for over a decade, change America. We're going to fundamentally change America. You know what's the question no one ever asks? Change it to what? It's not the question, are we going to change? Change to what? What is the goal? That's the thing I ask about Black Lives Matter, progressive leaders of tomorrow. People wonder why I'm so against these guys. Why am I so terrified? Besides the rhetoric that they don't put into the news media when they're being very, very polite and they're trying to be very, very cautious in what message they're putting out there on purpose, because they don't talk about, some of our members kill people for being in the wrong place, like in Atlanta, or for saying the wrong thing, like all lives matter. They don't want to talk about that. But one of the things that really, really terrifies me about these guys is how insidious this is. I don't know. It's absolutely terrifying. A lot of people may not agree with me on some things. I don't think anyone can disagree with, we all should have, in America, should have the freedom of the First Amendment to say what we believe. And I know there's an argument about whether or not social media will allow you to do that. And I can understand even some of the censorship that goes on, in the sense that if there are rules on YouTube, Facebook, that's one thing. And if you stick by the rules, that's fine, if everyone's treated the same, except we're not. That's the problem. But we have a nation that's free, and I should be able to say whatever I want. You should be able to hear whatever you want. You shouldn't be forced. And you shouldn't have people playing a slippery slope. This slippery, angry idea of, if you don't do what we're saying, you're implicitly evil, that you're implicitly, as Jorgensen is essentially meaning here, that if you're not actively anti-racist, then you are in fact a racist. That is an insulting, dangerous ideology. That is dangerous. Imagine if someone said, if you aren't, if you don't vote Democrat, Libertarian, Conservative, Republican, whatever it may be, if you don't vote the proper way, then you're a criminal and you're going to jail. If someone said that, everyone in America would say, you're out of your mind. And that is exactly what happens in Russia, in North Korea, in China, in Venezuela. If you pick the wrong candidate, you could go to jail for life. But instead of saying that, they're saying, well, if you don't do what we say, you're a racist. And we're going to tell everyone on social media you're a racist. And then everyone's going to hate you and they're going to go away from you. And your life is going to be destroyed. Destroyed. That's terrifying. Because in my mind, there is no difference between the two. Maybe that's just me. But Tina mentions communism, anarchy, Marxism, take your pick. Well, pretty much they are very much aligned in those three things. Not completely, but very much they are. Jason from Bing is, so is implicit bias training. Yes. I don't like implicit bias training. I don't believe in things such as implicit bias. If the bias is implicit, then you don't know it's a bias. You just don't. You know how you find out if you have an implicit bias? You suddenly realize that you did something that's biased. Whether that's through a conversation, through an action, through someone telling you, that's one thing. But you can't train someone. If you're trying to train someone to understand and identify, I have an implicit bias. Well, one, you're telling them they are inferior. And two, you're training them not to think. That's the only way you can achieve that. If it's an implicit bias, it's your subconscious. You don't know that you're doing it. You can't stop something that you don't know. That's subconscious. I can't stop breathing forever unless I actually concentrate on doing that. You can't do that. You can't stop seeing just because you implicitly, you look at things. You can't suddenly just shut your eyes off. You can't close your eyes, but you can't turn them off. And that's because it's implicit. It's something you don't think about. It's subconscious. But yet they would tell you, well, you should implicitly stop looking at things. That's just stupid. And again, it goes back to the idea of apologizing for being white. And by the way, people wonder, why am I so focused on apologizing for being white? I have had many progressives and socialists tell me that they have apologized to me in person for being white. In fact, I had a program on one of my podcasts a couple years ago where then City Councilman Conrad Taylor, a young white man who had gotten elected into local office, actually said he apologized for being white. And by the way, you know who told him he was wrong about that? Me. I hate when I have to, it's amazing to me that I, as a Republican, as a conservative, am out here trying to defend people's right to say things that I don't agree with. I don't agree with Democrats. I stand up for, the Democrats who are out there trying to say what they believe. Not that I agree with it. Cheryl Chapman and I don't necessarily agree on some of the ideas that the Democratic Party has that she may have as a Democrat. But she has a right to say them. According to her own party, she doesn't. That should trouble rank and file Democrats. Your party is saying you can't think for yourself. When I hear Joe Biden say, hey, if you're not voting Democrat, you're not black, I have to stand up and say, you know what, Democrats, well, forget it. Black people, Hispanic people, people of color, you can't tell them what to do. If they want to vote for a Republican, a conservative, a libertarian, if they want to write in Mickey Mouse on that ballot, it is their right. Please go out and vote for whatever you believe in. But don't do it because someone said, if you don't do this, you're not black, that you're not black enough. And by the way, I've been told by an individual, Kyle Yard, as a matter of fact, of the Black Lives Matter movement in the region, that I'm not black enough. And people shouldn't vote for me because I am in an election, that they shouldn't vote for me because I'm not black enough. How dare you say that? That is the most racist thing I've ever heard. That's as racist as Joe Biden saying that if you don't vote Democrat, you're not black. How do we stand up for that in this nation? How do we allow that to happen? No elected official or any candidate should ever, or any political organization should ever say that. That is straight out of the KKK. The fact that they happen to be Democrats and it's 2020 should terrify people. You don't get to say that. We should call that out. And that's essentially what this whole episode is about. It's a little different than most of my episodes, but all of this stuff is connected that I've shown you today. These are people who are telling you the ultimate underlying theme of this entire episode today has been people are telling you that if you don't think the proper way, they're going to punish you. And that punishment is being enacted in different ways. If you're in a political party, we're seeing that you're going to be ostracized, thrown out of the party, you're going to be forced to resign unless you do these acts of contrition, and that's bad. We're seeing that publicly. We're seeing people say, if you don't do this, you're not part of my political party, and you're voting wrong. We're seeing that social media organizations are saying, hey, we're going to train you, we're going to teach you without you knowing about it, how to think properly and do what we say. We're seeing that people are saying, if you don't agree with us, we're going to bankrupt your company, which is essentially the whole point of a boycott. And that's Goya. My God, people, are we not noticing that this is terrifying? It's absolutely terrifying. One of my cameras is about to go out in a second. Hang on. So, wow, it's been an hour and a half. The show has gone by so fast. And I want to thank people. I love it that people are talking. Jason mentions that is the definition of intersectionality. Yeah, it is. Of intersectionality, of the identity, gender, politics. Yeah, that is kind of the definition of it all. It's terrifying. Let's take a few more. It's hot today, by the way. In case you notice, if it seemed like I'm sweating, yeah, it's hot. I can't run my fan and talk to you guys at the same time. There would be too much noise. So I'm boiling under a light, and it's a hot day. So it's a little hot here. I don't know, folks. Let me ask. Does this make sense? Everything I've been talking about today, all the things, the examples I'm showing you, does this make sense? Should we be outraged, or am I misunderstanding this? When I hear, and I'm looking for a Democrat, especially if they want to get onto the show, a progressive, a Democrat. You don't have to use your name, but if you think I'm wrong, if you think that someone should be shot for saying all lives matter instead of Black Lives Matters, if you think that's true, I would love to hear your comment. I want to hear that argument. I don't know, how many times do I have to go onto the show and I ask people, I want to hear this other side. I mean, that argument is out there. I know that argument is out there because the news media is afraid, terrified of telling people Black Lives Matter supporters are willing to kill people for saying this statement, that they are willing to go out and boycott Goya and other companies for not having the right thought, that they are willing to go out and try and manipulate elections for people having not having the right thought. I have serious problems about all this, and I really want to hear the other side. Please explain to me why they are entitled to punish people for having an idea they don't like. And where does that line end? Where does that line end when someone says, oh, I don't like that, so you should be punished for it? Where do you stop that? I mean, breaking statues, destroying property, taking over neighborhoods, all because you don't like what someone else said. That's just crazy. And you can't tell me it's about George Floyd. The Seattle Autonomous Zone wasn't about George Floyd. The entire nation agreed that what happened to George Floyd is wrong, that the officer should be arrested and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And we all agree with that, and that's exactly what happened. And the riots and the looting had nothing to do with that. Those were crimes. The protests we all agreed with. The reason we all agreed with. Do we need to improve our police? Absolutely. Do we need to defund the police, to disband the police, because that's what disfund or defund means? No. But does that mean that we should also at the same time punish everyone because you want to have a more socialist country, which is the goal of Black Lives Matters? That it wants to get rid of the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, all 10 amendments, that they want to get rid of all of them and give you a new world where they're in control. I'm sorry, someone has to explain to me how that makes sense, that we have to destroy our history so we can repeat it. We're going to get rid of the slavery, all the messages and reminders about slavery, and all the people who are in there, whether they fought against slavery, like Frederick Douglass or the 54th Massachusetts Regiment. We're going to get rid of that history, and we're going to replace it with a new history that says safe spaces, except for people who we don't like, people that have the wrong skin color. That we have freedom for everyone, except for people who have the wrong color of skin, or have the wrong sex, or the wrong gender, or the wrong sexual preference. My God, people, that's terrifying to me. Jason mentions, I left off. Tina mentions, people that follow you are not that ignorant and don't hate America. I thank God for each and every one of you. I appreciate everyone who's watching the show. And even if you're watching this for the first time, I do long form political commentary. I give you the information. I give you why I have what my conclusions are and why I have them. And you get to tell me whether you think I'm right or wrong, or tell me something that I don't know, because I don't know everything. And that's fine. I love that. And I love my audience. And if you've gotten this far and it's the first time you've seen the show, thank you. I appreciate you. You are wonderful. Whether you agree with me or not, I don't mandate. It is not required for you to agree with me. But if you do, that's wonderful. Because that means we can preserve our Constitution, our rights, and our freedoms. And I hope to God there's more of those than people who disagree with me. And I tend to think more people who see the show tend to agree than disagree, no matter what your political background is. Because you don't have to be a Republican to agree with me. I don't think you have to be a Republican to say no one has a right to tell you what to think and to punish you if you don't think what they want. And Jason goes on, she broke the rules of intersectionality and died for it. He's referring to the Indianapolis woman who was killed that we were in the show. And Jason also goes on to say, so if that woman was properly trained in critical race theory, she would not have been shot. Meaning that if she properly, when someone said, hey, Black Lives Matters, and because she's white, her proper response would be, yes, Black Lives Matter, I'm sorry for being white. And if she said that, well, she'd be alive today. That is a terrifying concept. No one should have to face that concept. And I guarantee you, if anyone like Messiah Andrews or other members of Plot and Black Lives Matters, BLM, or the far left socialists, if you are there saying today that you think someone should apologize for how they are born, one of these days, someone is going to come up to you and say you need to apologize for being born because there is no end to that cycle. That is a cycle of oppression. That is a cycle of suppression. That is slavery, whether you want to call it emotional or mental. It doesn't have to be physical. It often is economic because you're telling someone they are inferior for having an idea you don't like. That is the end result of that, and I disagree with it. I oppose that completely. I do not support racism. I do not support sexism. I do not support anybody's superiority. I am an individual, and I should be treated as such. And that means that I am equal to anyone based on my skills and my ability alone, just like you. And some people are great and some people aren't, and that's just the way life is. Deal with it. But you do not have a right to tell me I can't think that. You have a perfect right to say, I disagree. And if you disagree, fantastic. And all I'm asking you for is, if you disagree, give me a reason why. If you think you have a better ideology, if you think that it's perfectly okay to kill someone for saying all lives matters, if you think that someone says that should be shot dead, then please explain to me your reasoning and try and educate me on why I should agree with that, because I tell you right now, I don't. That is racism, that is violence, and that is a crime, and no one should ever have to deal with that, ever. I don't care what their color of skin is. I don't care what their sex is. I don't care what their sexual preference is. No one should ever have to go through that, ever. Sorry, little emotional there. But, you know, it's a strong emotion for me. That is a strong statement for me. And I don't believe anyone should have to go through that. And I don't think that anyone should ever have to have their company boycotted because someone didn't like who they said thank you to. That is one of the most stupid things I've ever heard. I'm so upset with you for giving away $2 trillion because, well, you know, you thanked a guy. That's just insane. Jason goes on to say, Jackson and Chapman empowered the mob and this ideology. I have mixed emotions about that, quite honestly. As I said before, I think the intention is correct. I've read the apology. I've read their statements on it. I think there's mixed intentions, and I believe that they're trying to do the best thing for their constituents, that they believe this will help. And I hope they're right. But we'll see. You know, it's a difficult situation. It's not my party, I don't have a final word about that. But I would hope that everyone out there sees the bigger problem is that they are being forced. They are basically being told what Joe Jorgensen said to the Libertarian Party. I think this is a very important thing. Between what she said and what we saw Biden say, I think are very important things. That when you're telling someone, because her statement is, again, it's not enough to be passively not racist. We must be actively anti-racist. That is, by its statement, by its definition, by the meaning of the words, if you are not actively anti-racist, then you are passively racist. She is calling people who don't do what she wants a racist. I don't care how she cleaned it up afterwards. That's what she said. And I disagree with that. I'm not a libertarian. I don't have to be. To see that and understand what it means, this is why libertarians are upset. And you may be libertarian or conservative or Republican and say, I'm going to vote for Joe Jorgensen because I can't stand Trump, or I can't stand Joe Biden, or I can't stand both of them. Fantastic. Go out and vote. But you better understand there's a problem here too. Anybody who is saying that, and I'm surprised. Right now, 2 of our 3 presidential candidates that Google is actively trying to manipulate the system on, that they are trying to actively change your vote on, 2 of these candidates have come out so far and said things that absolutely destroy the Constitution, that absolutely require that you do not have a will of your own, that you don't have a mind of your own, that you can't think for yourself. Talk about a horrible election. And by the way, the one person who isn't saying that happens to be Trump. The guy that you're being told is absolutely evil. He's so evil that he did not say, like Biden, that if you're black, you must vote Democrat, because blacks don't have an independent voice. They don't have agency. They don't have free will, according to Joe Biden and the Democratic Party. And Joe Jorgensen is out there trying to tell people, this is what you must do. And people are saying that there's going to be a choice in this election. Yeah, there is. Or rather, that the choice is poor. Yeah, when you have 2 candidates that are saying you're forced to do what we say or else, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's a horrible election. I wish we could have 3 candidates that are willing to say, you have free will, decide what you want to decide. Just have a reason for it. That's what they should be saying. 2 out of the 3 aren't saying that. And the guy that they're pointing to saying, hey, he's evil, 2 of them are saying, this guy's a bad guy, you should vote for me. He's the one who's saying, no, you're free. Make up your choice. Decide what you're going to decide. Vote for me because I think I'm the best guy. It's your vote. And the other 2 are going, if you don't do that, there's something wrong with you. Wow. Where have we come to in America? Folks, you've been with me for an hour and 48 minutes. Fantastic. I love you guys. I love you all. Thank you for being here. And I know people may not agree with everything that I say. By the way, you shouldn't. No one should agree with me 100%. I do not expect that. Whether I get some people may know I'm running for an election. Whether you agree with me or not, 100%, you shouldn't. And I'm a little scared. If someone agrees with me 100%, I'm a little scared. That means I have to go back and look at what I'm running on and think about what I'm talking about, because no one should agree with me 100%. Because that means that means that you aren't getting everything you believe in out. We've been trained too much for that. We should always question everyone. We should disagree with almost everyone, our political leaders, the political party ideologies. We should all have some differences in there. It shouldn't be 100%. Maybe it's 90%. Maybe it's 95. Maybe it's 51. I don't know. But it shouldn't be 100%. I don't know. Maybe it's just because they all have great, they have more money than me and they have great slogans. I don't know. I'm not running for president. And that's because I can't afford it. And I don't want the job. I don't want to be president. I do want to be the election I'm running in. That's the one I want, and that's fine. And even there, we have people like this gentleman who's out there who says, if you think the wrong thing, racial slur, you're evil, no one should vote for you. That's what he says. That's up. By the way, that's still on the website. That's still live. You can still see that. I will never take down, even people who I don't agree with, I don't take down their statements. I don't take it away. So you can still see what he said for yourself. And that terrifies me. That is influencing people. That mindset of using emotion and race to fraudulently change people's minds. He wants to call me a racial slur. That's got nothing to do with who I am. It's got nothing to do with what I stand for. And there is no proof of that whatsoever. He doesn't even try and prove it. He's just saying it so that he can scare people into not paying attention to what I have to say. You should be angry about that. Whether or not you agree with me, whether or not you'll ever vote for me, or anyone else, I don't care. No one should scare you away from being able to find out more information. No one should terrify you or terrorize you into not being able to hear information and to make up your own mind. I don't know. Maybe it's me. Maybe I just don't understand. I don't know. Maybe I just don't get it. And by the way, if anyone had missed this, if anyone hasn't heard about this, I just want to make sure that I get the story out there properly for you. So I just want to show you. Yeah, this is Joe Biden back on May 22nd. If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black. Someone should be terrified about that. People should be terrified. People should be angry. Absolutely livid in America that someone is telling you you don't have a choice. You don't have a brain big enough to figure out, make a political decision for yourself. People should be upset. Just like they should be upset about Goya. Just like they should be upset about everything else that we've gone over. And that came from CNN, by the way. So if you think I was just, I don't know, if someone thought I was making it up or thought that Biden didn't quite say that, yeah, he did. Jason mentions, do you have an opinion on the BLM mural dispute in Binghamton? I'm going to cover this, and that'll probably be it because we'll be at 2 hours, and my voice is going. I'm a little tired, and it is hot in here. And I'm upset. I'm agitated. So, and I do apologize. I don't usually get agitated when I go over the show. But to answer your question, Jason, to let people know what's going on. In my local community, I'm in the southern tier of New York. In that community, we have some murals that have been made. They're not political. There's this one park that has some murals in it, and there is a dispute. The name of the park is Columbus Park, as in Christopher Columbus. And there is a dispute from the progressive movement, the socialists, the Black Lives Matter and Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, who are insisting that the park's name be changed because Christopher Columbus is a racist, as is pretty much anyone who's white, according to their ideology. Even if you happen to support Black Lives Matter and Progressive Leaders Tomorrow, you're still a racist. It doesn't matter what you believe, you just are evil. Just some people are evil, recognize it, and support Black Lives Matter, apparently. That's their ideology. And so when it comes to the park, they want the mural changed so that it will reflect what they like, to reflect their political ideology. Not because there's anything wrong with the mural right now, but it's not what they want. It's not their opinion. It is not their political beliefs. So therefore, everyone must bend and bow to their beliefs. And if you haven't caught it yet, I completely disagree with that. No, I don't think the mural should be changed just because a fringe small, non-minority, rather non-majority. They're not the majority of people in the city of Binghamton or the county of Broome in New York State. Most people don't want the change. The public doesn't agree. The public doesn't want that. A small group of outspoken, secret outspoken group of extremely radical, fringe political activists, that they want something, and if people don't do it, they're going to do what? They have threats out with it, that they want to destroy the property and deface it, and in some cases they already have for different murals throughout the city. Yeah, I don't agree with that. That's terrorism. That's force. It goes back to everything we've been saying. It's wrong. If they want to commission a mural somewhere, let them. They can pay for it. They can petition the city to pay for it and get something put up, if that's what they want. And if enough people in the city want to use their taxes to pay for that, fantastic. If they want to pay for it themselves, even more fantastic. But to tell people, I don't like what you've done, especially in art, I don't like what you've done, so you have to change it because I want something different. And if you don't do it, you're a racist. I'm sorry. No, screw you. You're wrong. You don't like it? You don't have to. If you don't like the Mona Lisa because the Mona Lisa is white, that's your problem. It's still a great painting. You know? If you don't like the statue of the thinker, then that's your problem. If you're saying, well, he should be black, that's your problem, not mine. The art is still beautiful art. If you have an issue with it because it's not doing what you want it to do, that's your problem. That doesn't mean it's everyone's problem. And just because a couple of people, literally these guys are maybe a couple dozen people out of a city, in my city, which is over 40,000 people, last census that we saw, probably less now, they don't get to say that. They don't get to make that decision. That's wrong of them. They're wrong. That's how I feel about that. They're wrong. When they're imposing their will on others because they think so, that's just wrong. And that's why we have a representative democratic system with a constitution and amendments that help to ensure we have more freedom and more choice and more right. And for those who are going to tell me, yes, Mike, but black people don't have that. Screw you. You're wrong. Yeah, we do. You know what? I've been alive 52 years. If you told me it was the 1950s, yeah, you got a point. If you tell me that it's the 1970s when I was alive, I'll tell you, yeah, you kind of have a point. If you tell me that it's 2020, no, you really don't have that much of a point. Is there racism? Absolutely. Is it out there oppressing you right now? No, I don't think so. You know what? There was so much oppression in America that Barack Obama, a man with a funny name, not a traditional American name, who happened to be a darker tone, or actually about the same tone of skin as me, and very young, got elected twice. You know, I don't think America's that racist. When we've got Dr. Dre, Oprah, Michael Jordan, let's go down the list of people from all kinds of ethnicities that are multi-millionaires, if not billionaires, throughout this nation, and are only that rich because they have the freedom to do what they want to do. You know, I don't think America's that oppressive. When Colin Kaepernick can get paid millions of dollars to play a game, and because of that, use that fame to try and destroy the nation that made him the money, and he gets paid more money for saying that, for opposing his government, you can't tell me that's a racist, oppressive government. I don't buy it. Because you know what? You can't do that in North Korea. You can't do that in China. You can't do it in Venezuela, Cuba, Soviet Union. You can't do it. Hell, you can't do it in most second world nations. Go through Africa and try and say that to one of the warlords. They'll kill you in a heartbeat. Say it in most parts of the world, they will silence you. Kaepernick is on TV. He's making millions of dollars. Disney just did a multi-million-dollar deal with him. Oh my God, I feel the oppression. Sorry. I got a little excited there. I don't know. We can disagree. And you can tell me, Mike, you're just not seeing the full picture. And I'm sure to some extent, in some way, I'm not. That's why we're Americans. That's why this program exists. We can talk. I don't think I've missed it. I think I've got the essential core elements down. The people who are calling in, the people who are making comments, they seem to see it too. It's not just me. And I speak to people separate of this program. There's a lot of people who are afraid to let their voice be heard. They don't want people to know they agree. But I get the comments. People who stop me on the street, they call me on the phone, they let me know. They tend to agree. So I don't think I'm missing it that much. I think we all kind of understand. And I think we can all understand why I get excited about this. Because this is about all of us. And as you can see, it's affecting all kind of aspects of our lives. From Goya sending out food to people and paying for kids to go through college, going to people being killed in Indianapolis and in Atlanta, an 8-year-old child being killed. When we're talking about what's going on with murals, when we're talking about people getting kicked out of elected offices, even as they do their job right. And then we have people like Representative Anthony Brindisi, legislator Bob Wessler, City Councilwoman Aviva Friedman, and Angela Riley. These individuals who are terrified about people ever questioning any of their ideas and saying you shouldn't ask about it. And then we got people like Masai Andrews or Roderick Douglas who are out there who are saying, hey, I'm going to use racial slurs to scare people away from you and to try and silence you. Yeah, when I see all of this happening, I have to say, the problem, I don't think it's me. And I don't think I'm missing the point. Jason mentions he is a victim when you apply him to intersectionality. He is a victim? Oh, well, I'm sure a lot of these people who've heard me say something about them today would say, oh, we're victims. Mike, the evil, mean Mike Vasquez is picking on me right now. Oh, I'm so defensive. No, they're not. Come on. You know what? Anthony Brindisi is a congressman. If Anthony disagrees with me, he has the full power of every news media in the nation to come out and say Mike is wrong. He's never done it, and he never will, because I'm not wrong. He may disagree with it, but he's not going to tell me you're wrong, because I'm not. If legislator Bob Wessler disagrees with me on these things, and he thinks I'm wrong, he has the full freedom and power of elected office to say, hey, I'm wrong. He hasn't. I don't think he will, because I'm not wrong. I don't think any of them are going to come out and say that. I don't think that, Kaepernick. You're talking about Kaepernick. I know Kaepernick won't say anything because he doesn't care about me. I'm just a black man in America. He doesn't care. And he really doesn't care. He really doesn't. But he's a victim, yeah. He's a victim. Yeah. I feel his victimhood. How much is he worth? How many millions? How much is his deal with Disney worth? Tens of millions of dollars? I feel the victimhood. You know, think about China. How many political prisoners and how many people have been killed and thrown into gulags over in China, in Hong Kong, a socialist city that is surrounded by the communist nation of China, that is oppressed by them, where people are fighting every day to have the freedom of America and to become more like Americans in Hong Kong, even as we have groups like the far left that are out here saying, no, we want to be more socialist like China. Guess what? If you think socialism is good, besides the fact that I've lived in a socialist nation, and I'm telling you, no, it's not. Besides the fact that you can talk to the millions of people who have left socialist nations to come to America because it's better here. You can ask them. And if you still don't believe us, talk to Hong Kong. They live this every day and they're telling you no. Yeah, that's the logic of an intersectionality or the identity gender politics. Hey, you know what? But again, I'm open. I have invited BLM and their secret members to come on, and they will not stay secret if they come on to the show. We're going to mention their names, their real names, but they are welcome to come on to the show and tell me how wrong I am. I invite them to do that. I just don't think I am. I don't know. But I've been at this for 2 hours and 5 minutes and counting, so I want to thank you. Let me first of all mention, if you have enjoyed it, if you have made it through the 2 hours or any part of it, I thank you for that and I appreciate it. Please do subscribe because Facebook, YouTube are never going to put and promote me out there because they don't want you to hear any of this. They don't want you to think about it. And that's terrifying. Whether you agree with me or not, it's terrifying that they don't want you to even have the ability to say anything. On top of that, and separate of that, I do want to say, please keep an eye out because on Friday, the 17th, I'll be speaking with the Joe Silverstein podcast, and I'll be the guest there. I'm going to look forward to it, and I hope it's going to be a great time. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a great time because I love doing the interview, and he's going to ask me some tough questions, and it'll be interesting to see how that goes, and I hope you're going to enjoy it as well. And finally, please remember, if you are in the Binghamton area, and if on the 18th of July, please go to Post 80. That's the American Legion Post 80. Support our veterans. Buy some barbecue chicken. Order some takeout. Help our veterans who are trying to just live. Help support the American Legion. I truly and strongly believe in that. And with that said, folks, I'm going to stop. I need to rest my voice for a little while, but I thank you. I hope everyone's going to be well. Enjoy the good weather. Stay cool. Drink water. And I'm going to talk to you again all very soon. Thank you.